Your hands have not stopped bleeding for 3 days. The shovel did that, not the enemy. You are a legionary in the army of Julius Caesar, a common soldier in the greatest siege the ancient world has ever seen, and you have barely drawn your sword. You have only dug. It is late summer, 52 BC, in the hills of central Gaul, near a hilltop stronghold the tribes call Alesia. This is the last act of an 8-year war, and for the first time in that war, you are losing. Months ago, at a town called Gergovia, your legions were thrown back in bloody defeat, the worst reversal Caesar has ever suffered in Gaul. The man who did it is a young Gallic chieftain named Vercingetorix of the Arverni, and he has done something no Gaul has managed before. He has united the tribes. So how do you beat an enemy who has finally stopped fighting the way you understand? He has also learned how Rome fights and decided not to fight that way. Instead of meeting your legions head-on, he burns his own country. Granaries, villages, whole towns set alight, so your army finds nothing to eat as it marches. Starve the Romans, and the Romans go home. It very nearly works. So when Vercingetorix's cavalry gambles on one open battle and loses, and he pulls his whole army back behind the walls of Alesia to wait, Caesar does not hesitate. He follows. And then he does the one thing no sane commander should attempt against a fortress on high ground. He decides to wall in the entire hill. You are handed a shovel instead of an order to charge. What you build over the next weeks is almost beyond belief, and you would not believe it either if Caesar had not written down the measurements himself in his war memoir, the Commentaries on the Gallic War. Around the whole of Alesia, following every ridge and ravine, you raise a continuous line of fortifications about 11 Roman miles long. Soldiers call it a circumvallation, a wall that faces inward, built to seal 80,000 enemy warriors on that hill and let no one out. You dig ditches 20 feet wide. You raise a rampart and palisade 12 feet high, studded with sharpened branches at the lip so no one can climb it. And you build towers along the whole line at intervals of 80 feet, so no stretch of wall is ever out of bowshot. Then a rider brings news that turns your blood cold. Vercingetorix got a message out before the ring closed. A relief army, drawn from every corner of Gaul, is being raised to march on your back. So Caesar orders you to build it all again, facing the other way. A second line, a contravallation, an outer wall running some 14 miles. Now rings the first. One faces in toward the starving town. One faces out toward the army coming to destroy you. And you, and every soldier beside you, will have to fight and live in the narrow corridor of earth trapped between them. How do you win a siege when you have become the thing that is surrounded? You still do not sleep. You lay the traps. In front of the walls, you sink rows of pits and plant fire-hardened stakes in them, arranged in a staggered checkerboard so there is no safe path through. The soldiers name them lilia, quto alis, because from above the pointed clusters look almost like flowers. You bury blocks of wood set with barbed iron hooks, and you call them stimuli, goads. You sink whole sharpened tree limbs into trenches 5 rows deep, and give them a grim soldier's nickname too. Caesar lists every one of these devices by name. You are building the most elaborate killing ground of the ancient world, and you are building it with blistered hands on half rations in the dark. And then the food runs out, but not for you. Up in Alesia, Vercingetorix is running out of grain, and he makes a decision as cold as any in this whole war. To stretch what little food remains for his fighting men, he expels everyone who cannot fight. The Mandubi, the very tribe whose home this is, send their women, their children, and their old people out through the gates, down toward your lines, hoping the Romans will let them pass or take them as slaves. Caesar will not open the wall, so they have nowhere to go. They are trapped in the same strip of ground you are, between two armies, and they do not leave. Day after day, within full sight of both walls, they starve. Caesar writes it down without flinching and without excuse. Have you ever been given an order to do nothing at all, and understood that doing nothing was the most brutal order you would ever obey? Then, near the end of the month, the plain to the west goes dark with men. The relief army has arrived. Caesar claims 250,000 Gauls on foot and 8,000 on horseback, led by 4 chieftains, among them Vercingetorix's own cousin, Vercingetorix. Modern historians such as Adrian Goldsworthy treat that 250,000 figure with deep suspicion. And they are right too. But every account agrees the host was enormous, and it does not matter to you how you count them. It only matters that they are behind you now. The 80,000 are still in front, and both are about to strike at once. The first day, it is cavalry on the open plain, and it grinds on until dusk with no clear winner. The second, they come in the dead of night. The relief army rushes your outer wall with ladders, hooks, and bundles of brushwood to fill your ditches, while inside the ring, Vercingetorix leads his men down against your inner wall at the very same moment. You fight blind, in the dark, on 2 fronts, feeling for the enemy by sound. When dawn comes, the ground is full of Gauls caught in the lilies and the goads you buried, and the assault has failed, but they are learning where you are weakest. The third day, they aim for it. To the northwest, near a hill, your officers call Mont Rea. The ground was too broken to close the walls completely, and the enemy has found the seam. Vercingetorix hurls 60,000 hand-picked warriors straight at that corner, and this time the line begins to give. The men you dug beside are dying on the rampart, the 2 of you raised together. Caesar sends his most trusted legate, his senior deputy Titus Labienus, with a fistful of cohorts. Each cohort a block of a few hundred men to plug the gap. He sends others to hold the rest of the wall, and it is still not enough. Then you see him, a single figure in a scarlet cloak, the general's cloak Caesar wears in battle for the exact reason you are staring at it now, so that every man on the wall can find him. He is riding straight into the collapsing corner. Plutarch, writing more than a century later in his life of Caesar, says the sight of that cloak coming steadied the whole line, that men fought harder simply because Caesar was there and would not leave. You stop giving ground, not because the danger has passed, because the old man in red did not turn around. Then the earth behind the enemy erupts. Caesar has sent his cavalry, many of them German horsemen fighting for Rome, on a long ride clear around the outside of the relief army. They come in from the rear at the worst possible moment. The great host, hammered against your wall in front and ridden down from behind, cannot hold 2 directions at once, and it breaks. And the instant one Gallic army runs, the 80,000 watching from the hill lose the last of their hope. By nightfall, the relief force is scattered into the dark, and Alesia is alone again. The next morning, the gates open. Vercingetorix rides down and lays his arms at Caesar's feet. Plutarch and the historian Cassius both describe the surrender of the man who nearly beat Rome. He is put in chains. He will wait in a cell for 6 years, be paraded through the streets of Rome in Caesar's great triumph in 46 BC, and be strangled the moment the parade is done. That is what it cost to lose to Rome. And you lived. Your wall held. Gaul is finished as a free people, by Caesar's own boast. Across the whole war, 1 million of its inhabitants are killed, and another 1 million enslaved, and Alesia is the day it was decided. Here's what almost no one remembers about the most famous victory of the ancient world's most famous general. It was not won by the sword you carried, or by Roman courage, or even by Caesar's red cloak. It was won by the ditch you dug, the stake you planted, the 2 walls you refused to let fall. Rome did not outfight Gaul at Alesia. It outworked it. 19 centuries later, French archaeologists digging at Alesia Saint-Reine would pull your ditches and your stakes back out of the earth, exactly where Caesar said they would be. So the next time you picture a Roman legionary, do not picture the sword. Picture the hands. Your hands never stopped bleeding. But in the end, it was the digging, not the killing, that conquered a nation.